Welcome back to Safety Matters. It's Russ Kendzior and my co-host, Sean Joseph.
Hey, Russ.
How's your week?
Pretty good. Feeling safe. How about you?
Feeling safe. Oh, that was a good line. Yeah, feeling real safe. Can't tell you how safe I feel. The world of safety is just the world I live in.
Absolutely.
But got a good show today. Got a lot of stuff going on. And so let's get to it, okay? By the way, a lot of people will say, before we get started, they don't know that you don't get scripted.
Oh.
People think, well, Sean always kind of plays dumb. When he's not playing. Well, I don't mean that. He doesn't know what's coming. And that's part of the show. And so I produce the show. And when we go through topics, you're seeing the real Sean Joseph reaction.
Yes.
Right?
Which, it's bad because there's a lot of stuff I'm not aware of. But hey, this is a learning opportunity.
Yeah. And there's members of your family that are oftentimes offended. Probably,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, the heck with them, Sean. Okay. We're not here to make everybody happy. So let's go ahead and start the show. Item number 1. I don't know if you saw this on the news, Fox News. Taylor Swift fell and hurt her hand at her tour and stated it was my fault completely. Have you heard about Taylor Swift's fall?
I did not hear about that.
Are you a Taylor Swift fan?
Not these days as much.
I thought you'd be a groupie.
You know what?
The screaming.
Back in high school, she had some jams. She became too popular, so now it's just too much going on.
Too much?
It's too much. But hey, I respect her journey. She's an amazing artist.
Well, in case you heard, she did fall and got hurt. Claimed it was completely her fault. Fans noticed that the Midnight Singer injured her hand during a show in Houston last week. There she is. Recognize her?
Yep.
There she is. She did not have a bandage on her hand, but she's totally fine. Took a tumble backstage during a show in Houston past weekend. Not certain exactly what happened. She said she got to play 3 insane shows, was loving the tour, life was good, a lot of passion, the crowd was into it. Seriously, can't wait for Atlanta, just all over this thing. But she went on to say that, what happened? She hurt her hand, totally fine, but she had tripped on her dress hem.
Whoa.
And braced her fall with her palm. Now, I'm sure you probably have limited experience with falling on your dress hem.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have the same lack of experience, but obviously that happens. I mean, if you're an actress or an actor or performer and you're on stage, and she was actually doing a wardrobe change.
Oh.
And so behind the scenes, hurry, get out of whatever outfit you're in, dress you're in, to something else. But she fell and hurt her hand. Now, the reason I bring this up is it could have been a lot worse. I mean, how often have we heard about celebrities falling?
This is
stage?
happening a lot.
It's happening a lot. It's happening a lot is right. And, part of that is because of the nature of the job.
Mm-hmm.
Post Malone did a story about him a month or so ago where he fell on stage, fell in an open pit. Yeah, you got to watch that one again. But it's somewhat common.
Right.
Where actors, actresses, you see like models on the runway, boom, down they go. And most of the time it's not really serious. It's kind of a reaction and they move on. But do you remember what happened at the 2023 Academy Awards? What happened at the 2023 Academy Awards? I'm giving you a little primer here.
So I don't know if this is the one. I maybe watched 10 minutes.
This is the one.
And
this is the one that you called me and said, "Hey, Russ, you got
okay.
to see what I saw on TV last night on the Academy Awards."
I don't remember the individual, but it's a lady. She's walking up with some like dressed up bear, and she's like right about to eat it.
Right,
and my mom
this is not that one.
It's not the same one.
That's a little bit. Not a woman dressed up with a bear.
Well, someone was walking with a bear beside her, and my mom goes, "She's gonna fall." That's all I hear. My mom goes, "She's gonna fall." And then
get Russ on the phone.
Well, I was
mom said, "Call Russ."
I was like, "Russ, he's so right." She was just like, she literally goes, "She's gonna fall," and I was like, "This is like boom, precognitive sixth sense.
Deja vu, huh?
And then she almost ate it, and it was a whole scene. She had to start her bit over with what happened. It was awkward.
All right, this one's a little bit different.
Okay.
All right, this one I found fascinating because it really demonstrated a true compassion. And it was at the 2023 Lady Gaga. A photographer was behind her, and down he went. But what I find so just like great about this is she reacted by just going back to want to help him. Truly compassionate instead of the keep going, the typical kind of stereotypical Hollywood approach to, what the peasant who's making noise behind me.
Gaga's a real one.
And so, she's like the real deal. She's the real deal. So she went to help the guy up. He fell down, not certain why. He said he just was, trying to get the right angle of the Versace dress, and down he went. But what was really kind of cool about that is, her natural instinct was to go and help the guy.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was such a cool thing to see, because again, we're used to seeing what? The opposite.
Yeah. Absolutely.
People just keep going.
Why do you think that is?
There's, thanks for the lead in. We just posted an episode called Spilled Milk. Spilled Milk came out last week. And I'll actually show you a video of taken at a major grocery store chain, big box retailer. And I see a couple with a little child in their stroller and their shopping cart. And you see that the baby spills milk on the floor. Mom and dad see it. Mom and dad look back like 3 times. And they don't do anything about it. And for 20 minutes, that milk was on the ground, and 100 people, including store employees, multiple store employees, walked right past it.
Wow.
And then, boom, watch. You see the person step in and fall and get hurt. And so you ask yourself, why don't they care? And you can't really teach people to give a damn. You can't teach people to care. Empathy. Have it or you don't. But I'm sitting there going, if that was in your house, you spilled milk in your house, or spilled anything on the floor of your house, you're just going to leave it there? Is that it? Is that kind of how it works? Well, I would think that you'd clean it up, right? That's what people do. They don't just leave spills. But this video, when you watch it, Spilled Milk, it's 2.5 minutes long. I kind of speed up the process of the edit, because we don't have 20 minutes to wait for 100 people to walk by, but just count them. You see 100 people.
It's insane.
Nobody did anything. And until somebody got hurt. And even after you watch this woman fall, you're going to see people walk looking at her like, ignoring her almost. They recognize that she fell.
Yeah. And
they just look at her and they're like, oh, okay. And they just keep going. Nobody ever stopped to say, well, are you okay? Thing we can do? I'm a witness. I saw this, because they always turn in the lawsuits. And this was a video that will lead to a lawsuit, is a part of a lawsuit. And so the question is, why don't people give a damn? And the answer is because people don't think they have to give a damn. We're all raised in families, some better than others. And, my mom was a clean freak. She loved to clean. It was never enough cleaning to be done. She would clean after she cleaned. And so, and a lot of moms are like that. But in this particular case, with Lady Gaga, is she genuinely, instinctively cares. Mm-hmm. She gets it. Okay. She's the kind of person that would pull over, I assume, and want to help somebody. And that's just such a really wonderful, beautiful thing to see in a celebrity, because you don't always see that. In fact, I would say the stereotype is, and you might disagree, but the stereotype is the opposite, right?
Sure.
It's kind of I'm too busy, leave me alone. When you watch that video, by the way, there's a lot of other people around her, and none of them turned around to help this guy. Mm-hmm. She was kind of on her own. And so it was kind of an interesting scenario, if you will, and really quite nice, quite refreshing to see. But anyhow, Lady Gaga, hats off to you.
Cheers. Good
job. All righty. Number 2, another story you may have read about. Another old guy, old man in the Senate falls. This story was published by Roll Call. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell will return to the Senate after recovering from injuries of a fall. There he is, the turtle, as his nickname is.
I'm glad he recovered.
Again, just another old guy, and old guys fall a lot. Mm-hmm. And I will spare you the Joe Biden falling up the stairs. Don't want to make fun of the man, but he's clearly challenged. And a lot of old people are. No offense, but and for some reason they're all in Congress. We keep electing them, the turtle. By the way, turtles live a long time, don't they? Turtles live like to 150. I mean, so this turtle might live a long time.
Wait, in actual human years?
Yeah, turtles will live over 100 years.
No way.
Yeah, they're very old.
They
think some are like 200 to 300 years old. They're like trees.
I had no idea.
Turtles live a long time. When they find like turtles in the ocean, like sea turtles, and they do blood tests and stuff, like on the Galapagos Island. Remember, they would go in and find all these sea turtles. They're like really old. Jeez. So for a turtle to be, 100 years old is not a big deal. Problem is, this is a turtle that falls a lot. Senator Mitch McConnell will return to the chamber Monday after recovering from a fall that left him with not only a concussion, but a fractured rib. So he went down pretty hard. The Kentucky Republican fell last month at a Washington, D.C. hotel, which I'm sure was a fundraiser filled with lobbyists, and has been absent from the Senate ever since. Upon his return, the 81-year-old turtle, and that is his nickname, by the way, McConnell, could face questions about the 89-year-old Feinstein, Dianne Feinstein, her political fate. As you know, she's a California Democrat senator, and she's facing a lot of scrutiny. Other representatives are calling for her to resign, and I love this quote. It's obvious she can no longer fulfill her duties. Are you aware of why Dianne Feinstein is not in the Senate?
I'm not.
Why has she been absent?
I don't know.
Well, she has a bout of the shingles, which is very painful. She's cognitively impaired, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinions. And this may have just pushed her to the point where she just can't serve. No disrespect. Everybody's day comes where you just can't do your job. And in this case, being a U.S. senator is a big job. It's an important job. And so Dianne Feinstein announced that she will not seek re-election at age 89. And that she may temporarily give up her Judiciary Committee seat until she can return to work. Now, she's on the Judiciary Committee, which means no federal judges can be appointed until she's back. And so there's a lot of people scrambling to get judges placed, and she's in the hospital at age 89. And Mitch McConnell just got back from the hospital. And I don't know if you remember this guy. We covered him last week. Mm-hmm. Senator Richard Blumenthal also fell, also got hurt, also was out of the Senate for weeks. And so there we are. We have a Senate filled with really old people that can't seem to capable of doing their job because they fall a lot. And no disrespect, but there comes a time where you need to step away and say, time to be spending time with the grandkids, or in this case, the great-grandkids. I mean, you're 89, you probably have great-grandkids that are about to, give you great-great-grandchildren. But some people can't give it up, Sean. Can't give it up.
So what is your take on a majority of our government officials are probably past a certain age? And so... Oh, yeah. Right. So their lifestyle and their ability to do their job, both physically and cognitively, they don't have as much in either of those areas, given their current age and abilities. So what do you think about that as a citizen, and what ways, let's use like the fall example. Looks like this isn't isolated. This is happening to a number of key elected officials. How can we improve that?
Well, the president, right? He falls all the time. How do we improve that? Well, I'm not for age, necessarily an age limit. I am for age limits when it comes to driving. Mm-hmm. I don't think 89-year-olds need to be behind the wheel just because the reactionary skills required for driving, kid runs in front of your car, a ball in front of the car, an object, whatever. You need to have really, really keen hand-eye motor skills. And I don't think many 89-year-olds are there. But, cognitively, these are people that we're putting in charge. I mean, there's 100 senators in the country, most powerful country in the world, run by octogenarians. I mean, old people that get hurt a lot and because they're falling a lot. And so I think there needs to be and I always thought there was a kind of a cognitive skills exam. I remember when President Trump ran for office, he completed some exam and he was proud of how, well he passed the exam. And President Biden at the time, candidate Biden refused to take the test. And I think we know why. You're not going to take a test that you're not going to fare well in. But you sit there and go, wow, got an election coming up. President Trump's 77? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's the youngster. And President Biden, who's running for re-election, is going to be in his late 80s when I don't know. Look, vote for whoever you want to vote for, but vote for someone that knows what's going on.
Sure.
Is capable of making very high-level decisions. It's a tough job. It's very physically and mentally demanding. But I think what happens, Sean, is a lot of these elected officials can't give up that power. It's all about power. The power is all seducing. And giving up power is just unrealistic. But, in great part, I think a lot of this is, Senator Blumenthal. Elder abuse. These are just old guys that are being, abused and propped up to suggest that somehow they're fully capable when, in fact, I think a lot of the staff that are around them they're setting the policy. Mm-hmm. Here, go read this. Here, go say that. They really are not on their cutting edge. And who can prove that? You'd have to be part of their inner circle. And a lot of this is agenda driven. So, if you're a Republican, you're going to be protected by the Republican Party. If you're a Democrat, you'll be protected by the Democrats. I mean, that's the nature of the business. So, but nonetheless, another old guy falls. And, I'm not laughing at their injury. I'm laughing at the fact that it's so common that we just kind of say, oh, well. And then remember, Senator Fetterman just came back. He had a stroke and mental breakdown. I mean, just really a disaster. And so to answer your question, how much do you love your country? How much do you want your country to succeed? Do you really want to have the best and brightest people representing us? Well, you can't have people who are cognitively impaired representing us and expect that they're going to be, the best at their job. Now, if you're willing to settle for second or third, then keep going.
I really like the idea of the cognitive test. I just think that, you go through the standard, process of, going through a nomination, competing in primaries, going through like the general election, but then that's like requires cognitive ability, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But some of that I think is instinctive for a lot. It's not necessarily like that process to get there is not necessarily indicative of the cognitive abilities to do the job itself. Yeah.
But these are people that we entrust with our safety. I mean, that's the whole reason I brought this up.
Sure.
Not to make fun of old guys in our Senate that fall a lot, but these are people we entrust to make some of the biggest decisions. Certainly it's going to affect your life.
Of course.
As a young person. And we've got people that just, in my view, are not capable of making those tough calls. And nobody wants to be the one that says, the king doesn't have any clothes. I mean, Senator Feinstein, you're 89 years old. When she announced her that she wasn't running for re-election, one of the first questions that came from the press is, so let's talk about, the decision that you've made to not run for office. And she looked at the meeting and said, well, I haven't made that decision yet. Well, you just announced that yesterday. She forgot. And so, let's say there's a big emergency There's a crisis in the world, and you got to pull your senators together and your president together. And if they're not capable of making those tough calls, we're screwed. And it becomes a matter of safety for us, our safety, for global safety, right? For all the things that go, in the world, whether it's tornadoes or hurricanes or typhoons or major earthquakes. You can go on and on and on. And there's so many military elements that are taking place around the world, and we need to just have our sharpest A team on the bench. We don't need to have people who can't function. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Yeah. Look, Sean, there's nobody whose job is irreplaceable. Okay. Everybody can be replaced. We replace presidents every 4 years, mm-hmm. right? So there's nothing like special about any one person. Oh my God, what are we going to do without him? Sure. There will be somebody equally, as qualified or talented or presumably better, and we just simply need to recognize that. But it's a matter of safety.
Yeah, I appreciate your connection to, elected officials. Some of the things that they have to experience, but then these, like you mentioned, these are the folks that are really having a final say on guidelines, safety standards, protocols that impact our life. So,
yeah, I mean, like we have discussions about the internet and AI and these really advanced concepts.
Absolutely.
And you have somebody that is not certain what they said the day before mm-hmm. in a public meeting, making these humongous decisions Absolutely. That we as a country, we as the world are going to have to live with for decades, and they don't know what's going on. I mean, there needs to be a cognitive mandated. I mean, I would put it in the make it a constitutional amendment. And I think we need to have term limits for congressmen. I think we need to have a lot of things that just keeps it fresh. We keep the best and brightest in office, and the ones that get stale or just can't do the job, that are afraid to give up power because that's all they've ever had. Mm-hmm. Look, Nancy Pelosi, there's another one. She's didn't retire, but what is she, 80-something years old, and she's I don't mean to pick on these people, predominantly Democrats, but it works both ways. Mitch McConnell's a Republican, and he's tuned out, and so it does create a safety problem for our country and the world.
So I have a question for you. Do we still have time on this segment?
Sure.
So, what's your take on? Do you feel like, let's say, let's look at the last 24 years, folks that have been in the presidential seat or within the cabinet or within Senate or Congress. We know around a certain age range. The amount of information and ease and access, maybe 12, 16 years ago, very different than what it is today. In fact, I think, in 2015, it was reported that the average American on their iPhone has the same amount of public data, like the same amount of access to information and depth of information that the president did, Obama, in 2008. And all it was maybe like a 6 or 7 year gap. So I just posed that to ask you, do you feel like we're at a point now where there's just too much information coming at these really important leaders? I mean, U.S., whatever country you want, but we just live in such a data rapid transfer system in the world now, where can any one person who has that much weight of responsibility keep up with how fast stuff is moving?
I mean, of course. I mean, the important thing, and you talk to any CEO of a major corporation, whether it be today or 1950, that argument can always be made. Let's go back to World War II. Imagine the amount of data coming in from the battlefields all over the world. We were fighting 2 wars at the same time. We didn't even have transistors. So it's a matter of what data you want to take in. I think the problem we have today is we have a lot of noise. I think the majority of the data that people are taking in is garbage. It's just background noise. It's distracting. Mm-hmm. It's irrelevant. Doesn't really matter. You go to TikTok, for example, and, all right, fine. There's some 16-year-old girl that does a backflip and I mean, she has 1 million followers. Okay, well, what was the real value of that? Right. I mean, that just was 38 seconds of my life that I can never get back. Who cares? Yeah. A lot of data, but meaningless data. So it comes down to being able to filter. the important information that needs to be known in order for an executive, whether it's the president or anybody else in a high-level position, or just you and your family. But what's the relevant data that I need to spend my time focused on, and what do I need to have filtered out? There are other people within the administration that can handle a lot of the second level, third level information that comes in and report to the president their findings and recommendations. And he can decide, or she can decide, if we ever have a woman president, for themselves what they think the right course is. But if you think, well, I can just manage it all, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. But frankly, Sean, I think where so much of our political class live is in the mundane, in the meaningless, in the priorities are just backwards today. The things that are of massive priority, like our budget. We're a country headed towards bankruptcy, and nobody seems to mind that. It seems to be like, okay, we'll just go ahead and spend more money, and somehow it's all going to get better because the United States has always been successful, and therefore we'll always be successful. And I hope that's true. But filtering the data, you need to have a good system of going through information that's relevant, that's needs to be analyzed and evaluated, and data that's less important needs to be filtered out. Not to say it's not important, but there's a lot of things that go on around the world that the president of the United States doesn't necessarily know about. I always got a kick out of the when there's a presidential election and the gotcha questions. So, Mr. Romney, who is the ambassador from Uzbekistan?
Right.
And he didn't know how to rattle the guy's name off because it's got more consonants in it than my last name. But, and then, of course, they'll ask the question, to the other candidate, and they'll say, well, that was, whatever his name is. They just, of course, everybody knows they don't even know where Uzbekistan is on the map. Yeah, but it's that gotcha question. Okay, congratulations, Mr. Smarty Pants. And who cares? Exactly. If I don't know your name because there's thousands of diplomats around the world, that's not to be disrespectful. It's just I've got other things on my mind. 100%. I'm not memorizing everybody's name.
Yep.
And so it does create that kind of trouble. But we got a lot of old guys. Here he is. This is the guy that said, yeah, he was in a parade, and everybody loves a parade. Well,
man,
everybody loves a parade. Number 3, Fox News, The Who. The Who, not the rock group, Sean.
Yeah, I was going to say. The
Who warns of a high risk of a biological hazard in Sudan after fighters seize laboratory. Did you hear about this?
No.
Well, you need to.
I know.
There's a doctor in Sudan that sounds the alarm. I love that phrase. Sounds the alarm over, quote, huge biological risk related to occupation of Central Public Lab. Did you ever hear that? Who used to do that? Huge. It's huge. Huge.
I don't know who.
Come on. Think about it.
Oh,
Let me give you a hint.
It's all fake news. It's phony stuff. Yeah. It didn't happen.
Never happened.
Safety matters in the news.
This is a safety matter in the news.
You're fired.
So we now have in Sudan allegedly a massive biological risk related to this lab that's been taken over by not good people. The World Health Organization, which I personally think is an incompetent group. I've felt that way forever. They keep proving me right. The WHO representative in Sudan reportedly warned Tuesday of a high risk of biological hazard after one of the sides fighting in this conflict seized a Central Public Laboratory with samples of measles and polio, creating an extremely, extremely dangerous situation. Not just extremely, but extremely, extremely. And that there's a huge biological risk associated with the occupation of this Central Public Health Lab by one of the fighting parties. Now, let me ask you just a straight-up question.
Yeah.
What in the hell is Sudan studying in a lab? This is a volatile country. Terrorism has been a very big problem for decades. Unstable government, fighting factions, very tribal. And they have a laboratory studying biological weapons, apparently. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, what's going on? so then it's kind of like the nuclear power plant in the Ukraine. The nuclear power plant in wherever it was in Ukraine, where the Russian forces are bombing the nuclear power plant. Did you see that? Remember that one? It's like, the nuclear power plant in Ukraine is being bombed by Russia. That makes a lot of sense. Let's just blow up a nuclear power plant. Well, of course, it went back and forth, and nuclear power plant is now, I guess in Russia's hands. And you sit there and go, okay, well, anybody kind of think through the security side of that? Like, what happens if, Russia invades us, because that was always a threat, and we lose control of the nuclear power plant, or, God forbid, somebody blows it up. It's called Chernobyl, right? And you sit there and go, these are our leaders. Again, like the previous segment, these are the global leaders who are supposed to be thinking about this. But the story is, again, a huge biological risk. Huge, extremely huge. There they are. There's a biological risk. The Jordanians have evacuated Sudan.
Wow.
They're getting out of Dodge. And but I go back to you've not heard of the story, have you?
No, and I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but in hearing and reading that for the first time, does that not sound a little bit like something that happened a couple of years ago in a lab with a risk?
COVID. I'm doing my Joe Biden. He whispers a lot.
Yeah. I was like,
COVID.
As you're sounding out, right, and reading, I was just like,
right.
Is this happening again?
Well, think about it, right? Some secret lab in China's not a third world nation, but a secret lab in Sudan has measles, chickenpox, all these diseases. Yeah. Why do they... This is like a unstable government. Who's funding this? I guess we'll find out, right? Who is funding it? Whose idea was this? Who's supporting it? Who are the researchers? How did this happen? Yeah. I mean, didn't anybody have a fail-safe plan that said, hey, look, the situation here is going, to code red, and we need to evacuate the facility and get all the bad stuff safely extracted. The U.S. Embassy, they had to have U.S. Special Forces go in and remove our ambassador from Sudan last week. Did you know that?
No.
Well, we did. And that caused a lot of turmoil. So how is it that all these preventable crises happen all the time? And let's just play this out. Worst case scenario. Okay, the bad guys get, biological weapons. Let's kind of play it out. How's that going to end? How do you contain that? How do you manage that? Oh, you know how it's going to go. It's going to be the same old story. Some Sudanese warlord. They love that phrase, warlord, right? I mean, if you're a Sudanese warlord, you've heard that phrase, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, warlord. They're going to extort the United States for hundreds of millions of dollars and no promise that they won't, release this stuff in the population. It's always about, right, extortion. That's how this is going to end, my prediction. This is just a game to be played. But, it's a big problem, Sean. Look at them all. They're all kind of getting out of town. Item number 4, Fox News. Arnold Schwarzenegger calls out CBS. Headline on Pothole story. Why institutional trust is in decline. That's the governor. Why institutional trust is in decline.
Wow, that's pretty darn good,
isn't it? I did that pretty well, don't I?
You're wide range.
I could have been a voice actor.
I was going to say, you do a lot of impersonations really well. Who's your best?
I kind of like my Bill Clinton.
All right, come on. You got to give us.
Can I do my Bill Clinton?
Please.
Hey, I never had sexual relations with that woman. Right? That's my Bill Clinton. What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. I never had sex with that woman.
That's
he never named the woman. That's kind of my Bill Clinton, but my Arnold.
You got a lot of talent.
Schwarzenegger posted a video on Twitter of himself filling pothole in the Los Angeles neighborhood. You didn't see this?
No.
Oh, the guy's a trip. Yeah, this is funny. I mean, it's a public safety story.
Okay.
Or so he was trying to make it. Actor and former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger claimed that a CBS headline on his recent filling of a pothole in his neighborhood was, quote, bogus. Now, didn't we kind of cover this already? I thought we did this pothole story. It may be wrong.
We did a story on the sycamores in LA.
That's right. We didn't do the pothole.
I don't think we did the pothole.
Okay. Well, the pothole's interesting. And so the Terminator or the pothole filler, star garnered attention on Tuesday after posting a video of him. And again, this is him videotaping himself filling a, quote, giant pothole in the Brentwood, California community after allegedly dealing with it for weeks. So he was all like angry. There's this pothole in the street. I have to fill it because the city won't do it. It's crazy. So
Arnold waits for no one.
Yeah, I'm not waiting for nobody. It's up to me. So he goes out and apparently fills the pothole. And so it goes on. The story says, quote, today, after the whole neighborhood has been upset about this giant pothole that's been screwing up cars and bicycles for weeks, I went out with my team and fixed it. Okay. I went out with my team. What does that mean?
Arnold's just the type of guy.
He's got his
snaps
posse?
his fingers and a team comes.
Who? I went out with my team. Like
that's such a boss, David.
What a way to put it. Not like I went out with my neighbors or a couple guys in the community. I went with my team. We filled the pothole. And he goes, I always say, let's not complain. Let's do something about it. Here you go. Schwarzenegger wrote on Twitter.
That's pretty damn good.
You've not seen this, have you?
No.
Okay. There he is.
Okay.
There he is. Look at, he's got the sunglasses on.
Well, my first thing is, what is he filling it with? So he's filling with concrete?
Okay, so let's just, you see here he is on the left.
Yeah.
And he's got his, pothole filling bucket. For some godforsaken reason, he's putting like dirt or sand on it. And it's like, didn't he just deny that he did this? He's calling CBS out for, I've not done this.
Absolutely.
There he is. And he's aging. Don't get me wrong. I feel, I'm kind of getting there. But this is the video. He and his team talk of him filling the. Now, what do you notice about the pothole? Do you think I'd jump out at you right off the get-go?
It's huge. And it's
look at the shape.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that's not a pothole. That's a trench.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You look at crazy. 3 weeks I've been waiting for this hole to be closed.
Pothole is maybe your foot gets stuck, your whole body.
Look at this thing. And the neighbor's like, there I go. Me and my team. We're going to clean it up and fill the pothole. He obviously doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, yeah. He puts see, look at it. It's a trench. Look at it. It goes all the way across the street. And then he takes sand. Okay, what? Huh? What do you put sand on? What do you think that does? Now, remember, you're supposed to compact the asphalt, pack it down.
Okay.
It almost looked like there was concrete there. And so it goes on. It says, CBS News insisted in a tweet that the pothole was a trench used for utility work, and it was. All right, so here's what you got. You got the Terminator filling a pothole that's really a service trench. So there's construction being done. Maybe it's his fiber optic line going to the house so he can watch his Netflix. And you just filled in a work trench. Now, it's one thing to say, well, it's a pothole and cars are driving in it, and maybe they should put some orange cones, traffic cones, to keep people out of the pothole. But he's filling a construction trench, and then CBS News comes out and saying, dude, you filled in a trench for workers. No, I've not done that. Wow. So the giant pothole that he said he recently filled on a street in Brentwood was in fact a trench. It's been dug for utility work. Oh, wow. The city said that. CBS reported it. City spokesman said in a statement that the hole the actor filled up is not a pothole, but rather a service trench that relates to active permitted work being performed at the location by SoCal Gas. So it's a gas line that expects the work to be completed by the end of May. So you have Arnold, who's a little angry that there's a pothole in the street in front of his house, and he's going to fill it in the wrong way, when in fact it's a trench. And so raises the question, Arnold, did you just kind of like, screw up my cable TV?
There's so many layers to this story.
Yeah. What does he think he has the right to do?
That was, kind of my first thought, which is, it sounds like it came from a good place, but still, that's a pretty big undertaking. why are you filling it? Right. That's unless you have history with that stuff. It's a tricky, complicated process, and people focus on that all over the world and specific parts of the country. Like that's their full day job. So why was the inclination to, patch it up versus contact somebody, escalate something? Especially like you're the former governor of California.
Because he's important. And again, I'm going to just watch the video. This is quick creep. Look at the straight lines in the trench. You can tell something. Then who are these guys? He's got obviously somebody's filming this, right? They have shovels. This was staged. This was an event. This was not a spontaneous. I'm going to go out for a party. Look at this. Look at the guy. There's one guy with his camera. He's got the iPhone.
3 weeks I've been waiting for
Celebrity filling potholes. I mean, this whole thing was fabricated. It was all about Arnold wanting attention. But again, you got to pack this stuff in whole. You don't just lay it in there and like icing on a cake.
So are they going to?
I mean, here's
dig the trench.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even. He doesn't even have like traffic cones out. They're not wearing the orange vests. I mean,
it sounds like it's
all the basic safety things of construction workers on a busy street.
Right.
He just totally ignored. He does have his sunglasses on though, and it really wasn't even a sunny day. But this was to me just a media attention, a media hype. Now he's all mad that CBS called him out for doing something kind of stupid. Another old guy, right? How old is Arnold? He's got to be pushing 80.
He's close to 80, yeah.
And, fills the pothole, puts dirt on it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so that's, that was the Arnold Schwarzenegger story.
Well,
that's Arnold Schwarzenegger, so.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, I thought you'd find that very interesting, Sean. That's really one of those cutting-edge stories that we talk about here on Safety News, but it is a safety issue because it's public safety again. It's, potholes are just creating all kinds of headaches in Brentwood. Isn't that the neighborhood that O.J. Simpson
that is
killed?
Got a couple of
Nicole?
friends. Nice area. So when we were reading the story, one of the things that jumped out was this existed, but then for how long it did. But it turns out the turn in the story was that there was actual like utility behind the trench, and then Arnold just did whatever he wanted. But yes, same community.
He did not like the fact that when he drove his Hummer, remember he drives this ginormous anti-personnel carrier. Just the cars he drives, like these ginormous, like a tank. Sorry. So Arnold pulls his tank out, and he hit the pothole, and so he's going to go out with his team. And they're going to videotape him filling a pothole, which was a trench. And when CBS News said, "Hey, Arnold, it was a trench.
Yeah,
it wasn't a pothole. Oh, the conspiracy! They're trying to destroy me."
So let me ask you, what is your take on? Let's put Arnold, his status aside. What do you think of everyday people seeing something, not knowing exactly what's going on, but they choose to take action, right? You talked about, for instance, the milk spill. No one did anything about it. What about when people choose to take action, but they do the wrong thing?
Which he did.
Mm-hmm.
He did the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to answer the question. Arnold, if you have a pothole in front of your street, what would be a reasonable thing to do? Number one, you'd call the utility company and say, "There's a pothole in front of my house. I can't drive my tank across it. It's very difficult to navigate. My neighbors are upset. My team is upset." So what would be normal? What would be kind of a normal thing? Call the city. Yeah. Get an answer. Utility company, get an answer.
So can I throw this one cliffhanger? So I'm not trying to make this any kind of state thing. I've lived in California and Texas, and there are a number of times we had issues with stuff in California. We'd call someone, nothing would get done.
No.
So
you pay a lot of money to live in that state.
I'll leave it at that. There's no.
What do you mean nothing got done?
There's no vendetta, fond of California in many ways, but if there was an issue, construction, housing, you had to bust down walls to get stuff done. So I just bring that up to say,
I can bust down the walls too.
Maybe
maybe that's what he needs to do. But all right, I don't think it's just California. There's a lot of municipalities where you don't get really good service from your city. Okay, so what would be a reasonable thing for him to do? What would he? Right, this is a nice neighborhood. This is not a bad neighborhood. So what would be a reasonable thing for him to do?
So I agree, right? So he calls the utility company, but what if they don't act?
Okay, let's take it to the next step. Let's assume they don't act.
Mm-hmm.
What is to assume they never get a call back? That's probably what happened. So you say, well, I'm going to try to avoid this pothole. I'm not going to drive down there. But, maybe something as simple as just going to your local Walmart and buying an orange traffic cone.
Yeah.
Put the cone in the hole.
There you go.
How's that?
Simple.
Put the cone out there and say, look,
Sensible.
Traffic cone, don't drive your armored personnel carrier in the hole.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There you go. That's a sensible thing. Avoid the hole. Drive around. Yeah, it's a nuisance. We drive around all the time with potholes. That's not unusual. It's okay. It's kind of what it is. That's the world we live in. But you don't go out there and say, well, I'm going to cut the electrical power in this line, and not because it's causing radiation. I got such headaches. Maybe. I just think personally, I just think it was a very arrogant thing to do. It was all about him. There he is with his sunglasses on and his team.
Yeah.
His come with there, posse.
Yeah.
Right. They all have their cameras out.
Yeah.
That's what it was about. Then he got offended. Look, it's not a big deal. It's no crisis. Just an old guy who doesn't know what he's doing, who's angry about a pothole, and he's not getting attention. You know what? He hasn't made a movie in, 20 years? When's the last movie Arnold made?
It's been a while.
Yeah, so he's no longer the superstar. They don't return his calls like he used to, and sorry. And so he thought he'd fill it in himself and screw it up. And they had to go back out and rip all his asphalt paving in. So anyhow, that is today's episode, Sean. Did anything you want to add to this?
Well, I think today it was interesting because it's clear that safety, these situations, impact everyone's daily life. Whether you're an elected official, whether you're a celebrity, whether, you're going down to a local store. So it just kind of reminds me that safety is all around us, even if we're not consciously anticipating it. I just have a call to action to, I guess, learn more about how stuff works, honestly. Because even as we were talking about the asphalt situation, in the beginning, I was like, well, good for Arnold, taking action. But then when we heard the rest of the story, I'm like, oh, that's the last thing to do.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. That's one of the reasons why the show is growing in success is because we're addressing subject matters that on face value seem like a reasonable thing to do. I mean, what a nice thing. This, superstar celebrity from the 90s is patching potholes in front of his house. And you say, well, that's nice. And the neighbor's like, hey, Arnold, good job. We love you. But he wasn't really doing it for the right reason. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he solved any problem. But is that how it works now? If you see something that you consider to be wrong, broken, that you just take it upon yourself and go and fix it. It's one thing to wipe up a puddle of milk, okay, on a floor at a grocery store, or maybe call somebody over that works there and says, hey, somebody spilled some milk here. Maybe stand next to the milk and warn people and get a wet floor sign. I mean, that's pretty simple. But, in Arnold's case, he was,
he recruited a team.
He got a team. He got his team. He got his posse. They went out there and they filled the pothole. And again, it's in the big picture, Sean, it's very, very small potatoes. But it does speak to this, vigilante mentality. We'll do it ourselves.
Sure.
We'll take it upon ourselves.
That's a great, yeah.
And I think when you start to assume the vigilante mentality, me and my team, me and my group, we're all going to go out and just do what we want because we want to change it because we say it's broken the way it is. Mm-hmm. That can be kind of scary.
Sure.
And, there are rules. We are a nation of laws. If there's a problem and you don't get served, okay. If you want to put a warning cone, a traffic cone out there, okay, that will definitely protect people, but you're not changing the street. And in this case, he may have done damage. Say they just put in a fiber. I'm just saying. See, it was this highly, fragile fiber optic line that was laid in there, and he's packing asphalt on it. You just put your whole neighborhood out of internet service. And I think what happens is the vigilante mentality can really be taken to an extreme. Again, I'm just using this as an example. He meant well. He was going to go out and do something to protect his community. And by golly, since nobody else is doing it, I'll take it on myself. It's kind of like, imagine hey, we've got a lot of crime in our community and the police don't respond. We can't get the police to come into our community and help us address this growing crime issue. So me and my neighbors, we got our guns together and we stand out. We walk the streets at night. We police our streets. And by golly, if anybody comes into our neighborhood, we're gonna take the law into our own hands. I mean, I know that's an extreme example, but you can extrapolate to that.
Well, and as I'm thinking of 2 segments we looked at today, right? 2 in which celebrities took immediate action or quick action on something. Gaga went to help a gentleman up who fell, and Arnold tried to fill what he thought was a pothole. The first, right, happened in real time. She was able to directly assist an individual. The second, I think, is more complicated in that I don't know if Arnold did sufficient research, but ultimately his actions, whatever the intent, had consequences beyond that. So I think that, as I'm really just thinking through, if there's an opportunity to help, support, assist somebody, awesome. But on the things that, require a deeper level of thinking, there's also maybe a time to not instinctively react. And I've flirted with that myself. When do you get involved? When do you not?
Right.
And I think this has helped remind me of, the situations where your action could impact several. I would like to see, Arnold in that case, and definitely, for myself, read, research.
Yeah, say there's a big tree that roots are growing through the sidewalk and people are tripping on the sidewalk. The tree might, fall into your yard or fall into the street, and you say, well, I'm just going to go chop the tree down. Sure. It's not your tree. Yeah. You just cut somebody else's tree down because you didn't like it. You considered it to be a problem.
But people think that way. People,
you can't just go and cut your neighbor's tree down because it's, you think it might fall into your yard or you consider it to be a hazard. What you do is you go to your neighbor and say, look, neighbor, your tree might fall and I don't want it to fall and you don't want it to fall. We may want to, I'm here to ask you to maybe take some action to trim the tree, whatever might be necessary. And by the way, the neighbor may choose to cut their tree down, but that's their tree. You don't just say, well, where I am going to come over and just cut your tree down, right. Or I'm going to remove your fence, or I'm going to, pick a safety issue. A neighbor, and this case was a little weird to me because I thought it was more of like a neighborhood thing. He was kind of like rounding up the neighbors. Hey, let's fill the pothole. And the neighbors are stopping. By the way, I think that was also choreographed. The neighbor who just happened to be driving by. Hey, Arnold, good job. Yeah. She's leaning into the camera and waving.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this thing just kind of stunk. And again, the reason I bring it up is because it is a matter of public safety. People cannot just take matters into their own hands and affect the community. It's one thing to clean up a little spot of water. That's called being a good person. Okay, a responsible person looking out for others. But, it's like imagine saying, well, we're going to rip your whole floor up. Yeah. We don't like your floor, so we're going to rip the floor up. No, just a little paper towel will do the job. So there you go. You have your final episode on the Terminator, patching the street in L.A. Of course, you live there, so there's a certain, I don't know what the mindset is, but, it is what it is, Sean.
At times it can be a free-for-all, but again, I think this is, today was helpful to learn about, processing in real time, when to take action.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger filling a pothole right after like a global health crisis in Sudan where they're about to have an outbreak of the measles that is spreading from the lab. And so it's hard to kind of put these two subjects together, but it's all the range of what the show's about. I mean, we want to talk about safety. You want to pick up where the mainstream media leaves off. And, not to be critical on Arnold, but, Arnold just take it easy. Okay, be careful. Don't get crazy. Because I wonder what he would have said if his my internet went out. Well, yeah, because you just cut the internet line and that was in that trench that was in the middle of being repaired. And so you just, created a bigger problem. And that happens. People, who are well-intended, I'm sure he meant well, but they do more harm sometimes than good.
Hey, it's okay. You want to know why?
Why?
Because he'll be back.
He'll be back. Did you like my Arnold impersonation?
I want you to keep going. And as you guys know, this isn't scripted. We do everything in real time. But I'm really hoping you give everyone a hasta la vista, baby.
You know what? I need the sunglasses and the shotgun. Well, Arnold, if you want to comment or you want to get a little, chat with us, you're welcome to call, put you on the program, and give us your side of the story. I'd like to know who all those people were. I mean, there was people behind the camera. I guess you had like a sound man there, makeup. Where's wardrobe? But hey, it is what it is. The man's an actor. And we talked about a lot of octogenarians today. So we're going to leave the show, Sean, on that note. So I guess until next week, this is Russ Kendzior and Sean Joseph.
Thanks, everyone.